Hello everyone, my name is Rob, welcome to Kingston Rugby League. This is my first Super League tips and predictions video. Unfortunately it's a little bit late into the season, but I'm going to finally start getting on with some of these now. Unfortunately, stats aren't as easily accessible and squad and injury information is not as easily accessible as it is for NRL. So the information will be slightly limited, but I'll try and give my opinion and expound on things as much as I possibly can. So without further ado, let's get started with the predictions for this week. Starting with Leigh Leopards at home against Hull FC. Leigh have won 5 out of their last 5 games and Hull have won 4 out of their last 5 games. In terms of the stats areas that they lead in, Leigh leads in metres and Hull FC leads in missed tackles. Now, the last couple of weeks, Leigh have been exceptional. They have been absolutely incredible. They're a little bit sort of up and down the first few weeks, trying to figure things out, get used to the pace of Super League. But since then, they have fully got it down. They're in a playoff spot right now. They're an incredible team, and I fully expect them to be competing in the playoffs if they keep this up at the end of the season. So, looking at Hull FC as well, their form has been really, really strong. They started to turn things around. They had a good 2 games to start the season. I thought they looked great. And then it all fell apart. And then suddenly the last couple of weeks have been exceptional. I do think that on paper, Leigh will just be too strong. I think Hull FC definitely are capable of putting up points. But I think they lack a little bit of a cutting edge. And that's the biggest issue for Hull FC in this game. So I feel that I'm confident in going for Leigh to win this one. So I'm going to take the Leigh Leopards to win this one about 32-18. Next up, we have the Castleford Tigers at home against the Salford Red Devils. Castleford Tigers' form is 1 win in the last 5, but Salford's is 4 in the last 5. In terms of the stats that they lead in, Castleford lead in errors, unfortunately, and Salford leads in drop goals, carries, and penalty kicks. Castleford somehow beat Leeds last week. I was in the car with my dad the other day, and we were talking about the matches for Magic Weekend. I said, I think Leeds will either batter Castleford or it'll be a close game. And then a few seconds later, I said, Castleford are going to win now, aren't they? And what happened? Castleford won the game. Salford, they are a bit of an enigma to me because I've said multiple times on this channel when I was doing the review videos that on their day, Salford are the best team in the league. In terms of the creativity that they have, they are more creative than anyone. But their consistency is what's letting them down. Their home form especially was a big issue. They're a smart team, and when there are points on offer, typically penalties, Mark Sneed will go for them, and that's, clear as they lead in penalty kicks. But they are just lacking a little bit of consistency. I don't think that's going to be an issue here. Castleford may have a lot more confidence going into this game now. But Salford had a big win last week against Kingston Rovers, so I feel inclined to still lean towards Salford. It could be a fairly big gap. I think Castleford may have the confidence to get over the line a couple times, but I still see a big win here for Salford. So I'm going to go Castleford 12, Salford Red Devils 28. Next up, we have St Helens at home against Wigan Warriors. In terms of form, Saints have won 4 in the last 5 and Wigan have won 2 in the last 5. In terms of stats that they lead in, Saints lead in yellow cards and Wigan lead in missed goals. Both teams this season have looked fairly vulnerable. Both have been prone to losses, probably against teams that they shouldn't have lost to, but for the most part still look strong and look like they can score points for fun when they want to on their best day. Wigan have looked more vulnerable than St Helens in recent weeks, as seen by their form. Saints have won 4 and Wigan have won 2 out of the last 5. So I do feel that both teams will be firmly up for this game. But I'm still leaning towards St Helens because I think overall they've sort of found a bit more rhythm. Paul Wellens has probably learnt a few things over the course of the season and is a better coach because of it. Certainly better than he was at the start. The team has gelled a bit better and they're just putting in more consistent performances. So I think it will be a little bit back and forth, but mainly in favour to St Helens. So I'm going to take St Helens to win 24-12. Next up we have Warrington Wolves at home against Huddersfield Giants. Warrington Wolves' form is 2 wins in the last 5 and Huddersfield is only 1 win in the last 5. In terms of stats areas that they lead in, Warrington Wolves lead in average gain, clean breaks and tackle busts, whereas Huddersfield lead in attacking kicks and kicks in general play. Now, I'm a Warrington Wolves fan and I always want to back Warrington, but I don't want to just keep backing them every single week. As much as I'd like to, I want to be as fair and unbiased as possible. There are two ways I see this. One is that Huddersfield are playing so poorly currently, and that Warrington are fine and have been good enough this season that this could be a win for Warrington. However, being a Wolves fan, I can definitely see in my head boos going around the Halliwell Jones as the game progresses late into the second half, where we're conceding too many points. A little bit like we did against Hull last week. I can hear the boos ringing in my head now. Like, I can hear it. But trying to take that sort of feel out of the game and focus a little bit more on statistics and just weighing everything up, not trying to make it all doom and gloom. I think it's more worthy of a close game. Rather than Warrington running away with it or Huddersfield winning, I think it'll just be a close game in favour of Warrington. I don't think the performance will be as bad as it was against Hull last round. Huddersfield were just absolutely appalling against Saints, even though Saints played brilliantly. The defence was just appalling, and there'll be holes that Warrington can certainly look to attack. So I do see an improved performance from Warrington, but I think this will be a very close game. So I am going to just edge it with Warrington 24, Huddersfield 20. Next up, we have Catalans Dragons at home against Hull Kingston Rovers. Catalans' form is 4 wins in the last 5, and Hull KR is 2 wins in the last 5. In terms of stats areas that they lead in, Catalan leads in tries, goals, and therefore points, and Hull Kingston Rovers lead in dummy half runs. Catalans have been exceptional last couple of weeks. They've been brilliant. There's a few losses in there to Warrington, Challenge Cup and in the league, but their form has been incredible. They did have some issues with consistency with the spine. Artemorg was constantly moving from fullback to the halves. I think he's found a lot more freedom and consistency in the fullback position now. He's not having to worry. Sam Tompkins is back in the squad, and that's huge for them. So I do feel that the Catalans are in a good position to pick up another win here. But Hull Kingston Rovers have been a really strong team this season, and I expect them to be fighting in the playoffs towards the end. They've had a few issues with injuries. Lachlan Coote has been out for some weeks, so has Jordan Abdul. Mikey Lewis, however, has had a big step up. It wasn't great the first couple of weeks, but then when Abdul was missing, he stepped up and became incredibly creative. So I would say that as much as Catalans would be clear favourites based on squads available and form, this is still the Hull Kingston Rovers, and they have been really strong. So I do think I'm going to lean in favour of Catalans, but not by a massive margin. So I'm going to take Catalans 30, Hull KR 20. Finally, for this week, we have Wakefield Trinity at home against Leeds Rhinos. Wakefield Trinity's form is 0 in the last 5. They actually haven't won a game at all this season. Leeds' form is only 1 win in the last 5. In terms of stats areas that they lead in, Wakefield lead in marker tackles and tackles, mostly because they've hardly had the ball and had to defend a ton. In terms of stats that Leeds lead in, they lead in offloads, 40-20s, and red cards. So I was fully expecting Leeds to beat Castleford last week, and they didn't. They've been a little bit weird this season, Leeds. Like, they started out poorly, then they found some really good form, started beating teams that you wouldn't expect, like Catalans. They came out and somehow beat Catalans, and they've put in really strong performances. They beat St. Helens, even though that they had a couple sin bins and a red card. But they started, and then even Wigan, they were a man down against Wigan and then demolished them somehow and put in a good fight against them the week after in the Challenge Cup. So Leeds are an exceptionally strong team. It's just the consistency is not there at the moment. But on their day, they're actually a really, really strong team and could definitely be playoff contenders, even top 4 if they just had the consistency. Like, that's the kind of level that they can play at. They're really strong on paper. I don't really see any revival for Wakefield this week. None at all. So I think because Leeds' form has been a little bit off, I still see a fairly big gap, but nothing to like run away with. But I think they'll have complete control over the game. So I'm going to take Wakefield 6, because I don't think they're going to score many points, but Leeds 24. So that's going to be it for this video. If you have any predictions for round 15 of Super League, let me know in the comments down below. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.